What's up everyone, Tink here, and today I have a question for you. What do you end up doing with your old GPUs? Do you sell them, put them in a different system, or pass them along to a friend or relative to start them on the path to master race glory? What if I told you your old GPU could be used to take your stream to the absolute max in quality without the rest of your hardware taking a huge hit on performance? And also what if I told you that it wasn't that hard to set up either? So to get started, you're of course going to need OBS Studio, and you're going to need to go through a couple of checkpoints. You're going to need a motherboard that can support dual graphics cards. So if you're already running SLI, you're good to go, or Crossfire. You need a power supply that can support 2 graphics cards if the card requires an extra power source, which once again, Crossfire, SLI, you're good to go. And then you need to go into the UEFI settings and configure it to support the 2 graphics cards, so by 8x8 or by 8x4x4, whatever. Also, if you're running Crossfire SLI, you're good to go there. And then of course you're going to need the GPU drivers. So the settings for OBS are pretty straightforward. Just go in, go to output, and then you need to change the output mode to advanced, and then it'll bring up this, and you go to streaming. This also works for recording. And then you're going to need to set the encoder to NVNC, which I'm using Nvidia GPUs. If you have AMD GPUs, it's going to say AMD's encoder, blah blah blah. Okay, and then you can rescale output or not. I don't, because we want the full 1080/60 stream. Enforce stream service encoder settings. You can change this to VBR, which is variable bitrate. You can use that, or constant, doesn't matter. And then your bitrate, Twitch can support up to 6,000 MEPs. I prefer to leave it at 25, so the people on the other end can use it a lot easier and watch your stream a lot easier than 6,000. Granted, 6,000 looks a lot better, but for this we'll leave it at 2,500. Keyframe interval you're going to need to set to 2. And then you can come in and play with your presets. I'm going to leave it at default, but I have ran it at high quality, and Blu-ray and all these other ones, and I don't really notice a difference, but high quality does, you know, if it makes you feel better, run it at high quality. Profile I usually change to high, but we're going to leave it at main for now. I don't touch level. Use 2-pass encoding is on, and then this is the most important part. You're going to need to change the GPU from 0 to 1, as that will now set it to the second card in the lineup, because computers always count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And then that is pretty much it for Nvidia settings. You can hit apply, and then you can come over here and do the recording side of things. You're going to want constant bit rate, your encoder set to NVENC. Don't mess with the rescale output. Once again, you can change all these, and also change your GPU to 1. I don't touch the B frames either. And then to make sure you're actually recording in 1080, come over here to the base canvas resolution, is what your monitor size is. Make sure if it's 1080 or 4K or what have you, set it to the base monitor size. And then rescale output needs to be the same unless you want to dumb it down. And now the best part is, like, if you wanted to stream in 720/60, you can set your downscale filter now to the absolute max, which is 32 samples, and it refines it and takes a lot of the blurriness out. Okay, and then also 60 FPS. So if you're using an AMD card, there is a lot more settings in OBS, because OBS is geared more for AMD. So if we go into settings, and you go into output, once again you need to change this to advanced, okay, and you need to set your encoder to AMD. And then you need to come down here where it says view mode and turn it into advanced. Okay, that's advanced. Pretty straightforward. But if we go into master, there is a lot of stuff. Most of this I have no idea what it does. But if you are, like it says, a master at it, then by all means go in and play with it. But for now, all we need is advanced, because that gives us this option, video adapter. Now, on AMD side of things, it actually tells you which one you're going to use. So when I was using my 980 Ti plus my 260X plus an HD 7750, I actually got to go in and it would say, you know, AMD Radeon R7 200 series, like it does here, and then I would click down and I would see HD 100 series, blah, 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 blah. So, but we got the 980 Ti in here for now and a 260X. So obviously we're going to need to use a 260X. Oops. And then we're going to apply. Now we can also change our bit rates and our keyframes, and there's a lot of other stuff in here. Also constant bit rate or variable bit rate. Plus it gives you, on the AMD side of things, it also gives you all of this extra stuff. You can go in and it tells you what it does, which is really handy. And then of course for recording, you would set it up the same way. Come in, AMD, and then you need to come down to advanced, and then bam, there's your encoder. And then of course you come in and change your bit rates and whatnot like that. So it's fairly straightforward just to get it up and running for AMD, but if you wanted to go in and really tweak stuff, there's a lot you can do, and there's also a lot you'll need to learn. One other thing I wanted to mention just before I go into the problems I had with SLI is that I use my 970 as not only the streaming / recorder encoding card, but also I use it for 3 other monitors, so it doesn't take away performance from the main card driving the game, and I can also use that 970 as a dedicated PhysX card. And it also works on AMD using the multi-monitors. Obviously PhysX isn't going to work on AMD, but it's not just sitting in there doing one task, it can actually do the other tasks as well. So it gives you more of a reason to put it in there. As far as SLI goes, the only real problem I had with SLI and using the second card to stream with was that my i5 couldn't keep up with everything else that was going on. It could run the game just fine, the frames were high, the game looked great, but when I was streaming it, OBS wasn't getting enough resources to actually keep the steady frame of 60 FPS. So if you're going to do this with SLI or Crossfire, make sure you have a processor that can feed everything. Because otherwise you're going to run into a big headache with, you know, big AAA titles like Battlefield 1 and stuff that is really resource intensive. But if you've got an i7 or a Ryzen 7, you know, something with a high core count, you're going to be fine. It's just stuff with low core counts. Like mine is a 4690K with only 4 cores, 4 threads. And it was overclocked to 4.2 gigahertz, but it still wasn't enough to feed everything. But I'm assuming if you have an SLI setup, you probably already have an i7 or a Ryzen 7 or a Ryzen 5, something with a, you know, at least, you know, 4 cores, 8 threads or something like that, or 8 cores, you know, being on Ryzen. But just keep that in mind if you're going to do the SLI setup or Crossfire setup, that lower end processors may have a hard time keeping up with really heavy processor based games like Battlefield or Grand Theft Auto. But anyway guys, that pretty much wraps up this how-to video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was helpful for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you have anything else that you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you all later. Happy streaming, everyone.